Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rich here, bringing you some full-on race splits from Hyrox in Orlando. Just want to go through everything, go through station by station, break down all the splits. There's no video recording of this one. Just didn't have the manpower there to get the race. So I'm going to try to paint a picture as much as I can with my words and with the numbers of the splits. So what we did here, I took my splits and put them side by side with David Magida, who is one of the best in the business when it comes to hybrid racing, and just some places where I could, like what my approach was, places that I could improve, how I think I'm going to improve on those things, and just kind of take you through the whole deal. So first, if you're liking these videos, hit me with a subscribe and a thumbs up. That would mean a lot, and you'll get all the newest race recaps and different athlete interviews that we're going to bring directly to you. All right, let's do it. So first, when I was coming into this race, this was the first Hyrox event that I've done, and this is fresh off of a DecaFit event that happened about 3 or 4 weeks prior, which went really well. Since then, I hadn't had a great opportunity to do too much running. I had some sort of hip flexor thing flare up actually the week before the DecaFit event. It was fine during then, and if I could really just could muster it up for one solid effort. But I was really being cautious with my running in between then. I didn't really want to push through any intense type of pain because I wanted to do this race and feel pain-free in order to qualify for the Chicago race. So my running volume and quality was pretty low going into this. And as we go through the splits, you'll see like how that manifests in the results themselves. But overall, I came into this feeling good. I was feeling relatively healthy. The first time I was actually pain-free was that Wednesday or Thursday of like I did a 45-minute run that Thursday before the race on Saturday. So it gave me confidence that I was going to be able to complete this thing to my best of my ability in this moment. And that was the idea, right? Like I didn't want to go, if I could go and race to my best ability and win, that's great. If I was going to get 7th, that would have been great as well. It was just trying to figure out where I was right now in this time. So that's kind of sets the stage for what this kind of looks like. So, and then leading into it, I was really focused on the sleds. Like you can take a look back at some of the reinforced workout series and some previous videos to kind of look at the workouts that I was doing for this. And I knew if I didn't get good at the sleds, I would have no chance. And I was hoping that if I got strong enough to push through the sleds, I would then be able to handle the work later just based off of pure ability and endurance, which is kind of my strong suit. So did that go well? Sort of. It would have helped if I was able to run a little bit more leading into it. So let's just kind of look at the splits here. So we're going to go side by side with Mr. David Magida, who had a phenomenal race here and has really kind of been a mentor of mine leading into these things. He's been great. He has a great knowledge base of everything. So when we're leading into it, we're taking a look at this first split of the run split, and the race itself. It wasn't particularly deep up front, so it was basically David and myself, and we were the ones up front. So I knew that I was just going to go out with him, and the idea with the first couple of runs is that I wanted it to feel really easy. There was no purpose in going really hard here because the back half of the race is really where it's going to be. So for me, running that first split in about 3:43 is about 6-minute pace, 5:58 pace. That's comfortable, right? That's probably slower than marathon pace. If I was doing marathon training, if I had enough volume built in, I would be able to run faster than 5:58s for 26 miles for 2+ hours. So this pace is pretty comfortable off the jump, and it felt that way. It felt really easy. It felt really light. Felt pretty smooth running through it. And I was side by side with David. So you could see we had the exact same splits running into the ski erg. And then leading into the ski erg, the idea here was the same thing. I spent a lot of time on the ski erg trying to really figure out where that pacing was and what was going to be easy for this. So I got into the ski erg. They have it set to about 7, so I moved it down to 5, and I wanted to kind of keep my strokes right around 150. Not my strokes, my 500, my pace per 500 around 150. So that was pretty close to where it was. It was probably a little bit slower than that on some. It was like 152, 153, but I really just wanted to settle in and feel comfortable and just make it be relatively easy. It's worth noting here that the splits for this particular event were not broken out into the exact, like there was a transition from the run to the piece of equipment. So you can see my split was 404, David's split was 401. That doesn't mean I was skiing at 202. It just means that that was the time that it took to do the 1,000-meter ski and run in and out of the transition zone. Previous Hyrox events, they've had a mat for your run, and when you come in, that catches your run splits, and then there's another mat that catches your workout splits, and there's an in between what they call rock zone, which is kind of like your transition time. So they didn't have that one here, so the run splits are going to be extremely accurate in terms of what that 1,000-meter was, but the actual transitions are going to be a little bit up to interpretation based on how fast you got in and out of it and what the zones were. So the zones are going to look slower than what the actual pacing of them, what they were. And I don't have a good idea of how long it was. I haven't seen a video. I haven't seen any type of transitions in and out of the zones to even like have an idea. I'm guessing 20 seconds because there was a bit of running, a bit of zigzagging in and out of places. So 20, 30 seconds, depending on how tired I was, maybe longer. I'm not actually sure. Either way, David hit it a little bit quicker than I did on the ski erg, and then I closed that gap. So he got about 3 seconds on me in the ski erg part. And on the run, I was just able to run comfortably and kind of catch back up to him without a problem. He ran 3:41, which is right around that like 5:55 pace, and mine was probably a little bit quicker into like the 5:45-ish pace on that one. But I just caught up, ran side by side with him, helped him out. I took the pace for a little bit just to kind of take so he wasn't pacing off of him, and I wasn't just doing like the rabbit, or he wasn't my rabbit, and I wasn't like drafting off of him. So I wanted to work together with him on that. And we came into the sled push together, and in the sled push, this is where I was definitely concerned. I hadn't felt this carpet. It's heavy when I push it at the gym that I go to, but overall, like it felt pretty good. It was just 2 laps down and back, and I've been practicing on like a 10 meter, so I've been doing 5. So it's one less transition that I have to make, and my strategy was to do 12 steps at a time. That seems to be the point before I really start to feel my legs completely blow up, and so that's what I did. I did 12. I was able to move the thing pretty much no problem. The carpet that I've been training on is pretty close to the carpet there. It's definitely not turf. It's literally carpet, so it's really low to the ground, where like if you're at a gym that has like turf, it's raised up and there's going to be a little less surface space for it to create that friction. So, but fortunate for me, I had that. It felt the same, and I was prepared for the sled push to take 4 minutes to like 4:30, depending on how that carpet kind of screwed it up. But having it be 4:18 with the transitions is probably closer to 3:40, which is pretty solid overall. If I was under 4, I'd be really, really happy with that. And Megiddo was a little bit faster than I was, so I was trying to keep pace. I wasn't necessarily trying to keep pace with him, but I saw him, and I could tell that this was going like fairly well for me. I was be able to do those 12 steps. I was trying to keep the rest about 5 seconds in between the 12 steps. Probably didn't do that toward the latter half of the push, but was able to kind of maintain fairly well through the most part. And I was feeling great. I felt great about that. I was like, okay, this thing's moving, let's go. But then you can see shortly after that run, the third run completely blew me to pieces. So it was about a minute slower per mile. So it was about 6:45 pace, running 4:12 pace. And David was running 3:46. So he got off of that and was running almost the same that he had run in the previous 2. A little bit slower, but almost the same that he had done in the previous 2, where mine was almost like 30 seconds slower than my first run. So you can see right here, he put on a bunch of time with the actual run itself, 26 seconds, and 14 seconds on the sled push with the transitions as well. And with the push itself, like I was ready to have lost a lot of time on this, 30 seconds to a minute 30. So keeping it within that 15 was fine, but this run is just unacceptable. Like I was just completely exhausted. And about 500 meters in, it came back a little bit, but that first run after that, and I was definitely slow to get out of the zones and get onto the pace, and it really felt tough. So this is definitely going to be an area of development. The strength is there to push the thing, but the ability to transition out of it and keep my muscular endurance at a high level isn't quite there yet. So working on maybe pushing this thing even longer, dropping the weight, and spending a little bit longer time in this frame, and then doing a longer run, and just making sure that I'm running really fast out of the gate and just getting really used to that feeling of just like being underwater, because it will kind of transition out and I will start to flush things out and we'll come back, as you'll see in the later runs. But that's going to be a place where I'm going to need to really spend some time, is running after the sled, and just getting familiar with that. So at this point, I'm down quite a bit. David gets into the sled pole, and I come in, and this is another part where I wasn't sure. You hear a lot about the rope and how it's like a little stretchy, and it was, and how long it is, and it is long, but the pole itself went fairly well. I was able to kind of just pick it up. I kept my arms straight when I pull, and then I just kind of leaned back into it. And so my sled pull was 5:26, where David's was 6:33. So I was able to catch up, put a whole minute and 7 seconds on him, and I was actually out of the zone before he was on this. So I was actually in the lead after the fourth station, or the third station, I guess, and then going into the fourth run. So I was really, really happy about this. And the pull itself was pretty solid. It was the best one of the day. It was probably my best station of all of them, but it was definitely tiring. But I came out of it, and my run was faster. I was able to kind of bring it back into low, like 6:15-ish pace, which still isn't very fast, but I was able to still kind of to go a little bit faster than I had in the previous one. But you see, again, David comes out. He didn't have a great pull, but still has a great run. It was back to the same pace as that first run, and he put 16, and he gained 16 seconds on me from the minute and 7 seconds that he lost on this, on just this run. So he was able to catch back up by the burpee broad jumps, and I was ahead of him going into it, but not by more than 15 seconds. So by the time he got through the burpee broad jumps, we were pretty much even. He was out the door a little bit quicker than I was for the burpee broad jumps, and I was just tired at this point. It took everything I could to really muster up the ability to run, to push and pull this thing, and then being able to run. So like by the time I was at burpee broad jumps, I was really tired. So that was like the main deal with this, and that has a little bit to do with how much the sleds took out of me. So that's my overall muscular endurance and my muscular strength in general, but the running after it was definitely a problem. So doing the burpee broad jumps really kind of took it out of me, which I didn't think it would. I thought I would be able to really kind of go through it. And then you could see on the run after, it wasn't too bad. It was about 12 seconds of time. I was able to kind of stay under, and my run was actually pretty good. I thought it would be worse than this because of how tired I was feeling. And then when we came into the row pretty close together, it was probably only a couple seconds, but again, he put 13 seconds on me between the row and the transitions, which is quite a bit of time. I thought the row was going to go well for me here, and again, same deal. The thing was set at about 7, and I was hoping to pull 150. In training, 150 was pretty simple. It's pretty easy, something I could do, but it wasn't there. It was like 153s, 154s, and really just trying to get through it. And at this point, I must say my grip was smoked. I could feel the grip feeling smoked on the row itself. And during this, I forgot to mention that I was wearing gloves. I had like these wide receiver gloves on, and I had wristbands on to try to help keep these gloves dry. That was a major concern of mine going into this. The race is an hour plus indoors in Florida, and I sweat a lot, so keeping my hands dry was definitely a point of emphasis. I wasn't sure how the gloves were going to do, but I decided to roll with them through it. So they felt fine. The gloves felt fine doing the row itself, but my forearms felt smoked, and I could feel the pump of my forearms pushing up against the wristband. So it may have slowed down some circulation into my hands and forearms because of how restricted it was there. So I probably should have had those a little bit lower onto my wrist itself, so it wasn't so tight onto the actual muscle, because I was wearing them kind of like up on my forearms. So it should probably be closer to my wrist. And after the row, where I said I was probably rowing like 153s, 154s, and David was cranking away, put 13 seconds on me, which is a little bit too much. And then after that run, it was another 10 seconds, so the run comes back. The run definitely came back for me. It was 350, which was one of the better runs, which was my third fastest run from the start. And David was right around 341, so his are getting a little bit quicker as well. So after the row, there's a bit of a reprieve. I mean, you get to sit down. Your heart rate's going to go down a little bit. It's exhausting on your upper body for sure, and on, like I said, on my grip. But like, you can come off of that and run pretty well. So doesn't necessarily need to be a transition I need to work on too much, but the transition coming into it and really working that row is a place where I can work on for sure. And then getting into the farmer's walk, which was an absolute disaster. And this farmer's walk was just down and back several times. I don't even know. I think 4 times. And so it didn't like zigzag around. So it was like dead stop, turn around, dead stop. And so by the time I got there, I did 2 laps, put it down, and then I could feel my hands and forearms really feeling pumped. And now also I couldn't grip the kettlebells themselves. They're not the powder coated ones, they're like the slick metal ones. So once my gloves were completely soaked, and those wide receiver gloves, if they're not sticky, they're very slippery if they're wet. So I couldn't really hold on to the thing, and so I was setting it down a lot. So I actually took them off halfway through, and then my hands were still really soaked and pulled through. So I should have taken those gloves off before, maybe after the rope pull, even the sled pull. I should have just taken them off and just kind of ditched them, but that is just kind of the way that it goes with that, and I just didn't know, and I was definitely overheated and didn't know where to put them. I didn't know if I could just drop them. It seems like you could just put them wherever you wanted to, just kind of throw them out, and there was no, like, I didn't need to have them on my person to continue with the race. So you can see here 4 minutes in the 200-meter farmer's walk, where a lot of times people are under 2 minutes. David's, I think, was the second fastest, and it put 1 minute and 34 seconds on me in that one station, which is just crazy. A station that should kind of be a gimme. It's not. It shouldn't be that hard. It's the fastest one. I shouldn't be taking that long on something like that. I shouldn't take as long as my runs. It shouldn't be that slow of a station. So definitely some work to do there, working under fatigue. And just like after the row, these last couple stations were just full on brutal fatigue. And that has a lot to do with just the amount of volume I hadn't been able to put in when it comes to the running specific stuff. And so the runs were taking a lot out of me, and the volume just before it wasn't really set up to do that well on the later part of the workouts, of the race. So you can see it just was brutal. It just killed me. So that was tough. Then the run, again, David put 13 more seconds on me on the run, and then the lunges was another minute and change. So I really just kind of fell apart in these last after run 6. The farmer's walks and the lunges were pretty bad. So right in this last part, he beat me by 4 minutes and 12 seconds. So you can see here it's like almost 3 of those minutes came in the back part, like the back part here, where he was really able to just kind of continue his pace, and my pace fell apart really bad. So, and he put another minute on me on the lunges, and then on that last run was 40 seconds that he put on me in that last run, which was, he was kicking my butt on the runs the whole time, but those last couple were just brutal. So things just kind of fell apart here. And it wasn't that I just let them fall apart. I just didn't have it. On the last run, I just ran out of gas. I was actually cramping. My calves were cramping, so I was trying to get through that however I could. I didn't take any fuel throughout until this last run because I had a goo on me, and I was just like hoping to get it down to see if that would help at all. It didn't, and it wouldn't have. And really, that cramping wasn't because of a lack of nutrition. It was just a lack of training. It was just lack of that type of volume, because even like this 5-mile run, it was one of the furthest that I've run in the past 5 or 6 weeks, and definitely the fastest that I'd run in that amount of time. So the run just really took it out of me by the time we got to these last stations. So the wall balls themselves, when I got to the wall balls, I was thinking I was going to do 25s, and I was able to do 25, the 2 sets of 25, and the last were just however I could get through it. So it felt horrible, and it felt like it was going really poorly, but to see I was only 3 seconds behind him on that last station was pretty good. And he didn't really have a reason to push at this point, so he probably had some gas in the tank to go a little bit harder, where I was just suffering trying to get through it. So I did have a strategy for that. I must say I didn't have a strategy for the farmer's walk or the lunges because I didn't know how that was going to go. I hadn't been able to put in too many lunges because my hip wasn't feeling great. That was something that did bother it a little bit. But even if I did have a strategy, I don't think I was prepared for the fatigue, and I don't think it would have really mattered that much on that. So you can see overall, he put almost 2 minutes on me on the runs themselves and almost 2 minutes on the stations themselves. So he's just better than me at all the stuff. But most of the station time was within, he put a little bit of time on everything except the pull, but the biggest chunks were these lunges and farmer's walks, which are at the back end. So when I look at this in this scope, to me, this is an endurance problem. My muscular endurance isn't quite there. My running endurance isn't quite there. My fitness just isn't quite there yet. Everything else kind of seemed in line. I don't necessarily think this was a pacing problem by any means. Maybe I go easier on the sled push or pull, but I really don't see how that's even possible because if I'm not moving that as hard as I possibly can, it's not going to move. So there isn't too much of an option when it comes to the push or the pull. Maybe I can take more rest time in between these things, and hopefully that the rest time will be made up on the runs. But for this first go at it, I needed to see what that was like. I needed to see where I was ultimately with the push and with the pull and how much that is going to affect my running. And it turns out a lot. It turns out it's going to affect my running a lot. So that is kind of the main deal when looking at this and how I'm going to prepare. I only have a couple weeks leading into Chicago. My hip feels exponentially better, so I'm going to put a lot more time on my feet. I'm going to do a lot more compromised work when it comes to doing a huge bout of something. So even my like threshold work, I'm going to do like 50 burpees before threshold mile and kind of run at a threshold pace to really help my endurance bump up a little bit. And then I'm going to do one work that's going to be more quality work, that's going to be more like race simulation here, where there's going to be a lot of pushing, a lot of pulling, a lot of heavy work, and then running in between and kind of doing longer, faster runs and pushing the run out of the transition just so I can see if I can recover on that run at a faster pace. So that's really what it's looking like the next couple of weeks. I'll make sure to make a video documenting what those workouts are going to look like moving forward. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you can get something from this with the pacing of everything and what the splits and everything look like on my end. So if you like this video, hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.